QuickClick is a hosted shopping cart system that allows you to create buttons that customers can click from your website to easily make payments. There are quite a few settings, but let's go through the button generator first. There are 4 types of buttons you can make. There's a shopping cart, fixed price, donation, and recurring button. The shopping cart is a button you're going to want to use when you are giving the customer options to check out for multiple items at the same time. So you're going to want to add a button for each individual item. So let's make one right now. Okay, so I have an item description, lots of fun vacation, an item ID, which is just something that you have to enter for this sort of button. It can be whatever you'd want. And then an item price. So this is how much the item costs. You can choose the shopping cart language the customer sees when they check out, English or Spanish. You can let them specify a quantity if you want them to be able to buy more than one. And then there's a few options for URLs. So these are going to show at different points during the checkout so the customer can go back to your website and go to specific pages. So the cancel URL is if they cancel out of the shopping cart where you want them to go. A continue URL, if they add an item to the shopping cart and they want to keep shopping, they can have something here. And the finish URL is after the transaction is complete. This is a link where the customer can go back to your website and see a thank you page or whatever you'd like them to see. You can set a shipping amount, which is going to be how much the customer is going to pay for shipping. And you can add some product options. So you don't have to, but if you add some options here, I could add something for like size, and I can make a text entry so the customer enters it, or a drop down. So the size is going to be small, medium, or large, for example. So with these entered, when the customer checks out, they're going to see an option for size and be able to choose one of these options. Each option should be on its own line. And there's key verification, which I'll talk about in a second, but effectively you want to always keep this on. It's going to make sure that your checkout experience is as secure as possible. So when I create the button, this gives me a couple things. I get an add to cart section and a view cart. So the add to cart is going to give me HTML code that I can put on my website, which is going to render as a button, and a link alternative, which is just a web link that'll go to the checkout page, which will, in this case, go to the add a item to the shopping cart page, and we'll let them check out from there. If I want to have a button on my site to just view the cart without adding a new item, I can use this code or this link, and that'll do that. The second button type is the fixed price button. This one is much simpler. All you have to do is enter an item description. We'll do test, we'll do testing product, and set a price. We'll just make this $5. Again, you can set the language to English or Spanish, have a finish URL, so after they check out and see a receipt that their transaction was successful, you can send them back to your website, and I can create this button. In this case, I just get a button code that'll generate a button that says buy now. You can change this to whatever you'd like, but you can just copy it from here, or a link to take you directly to the page. After that is the donation style button. This is even simpler. All you give the customer is a name, so donation is what I'll call it, and set the language. In this case, you can give them the option to set a recurring payment, so they can either give in a one-time payment, or if you check this box, it'll give them the option to either do a single donation or make a recurring one, and it'll give them the option to make a weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannually, or annual donation, and then how many times they want it to happen. 3 times, 12 times, unlimited times, whatever they want. So you don't have to check that, but if you do, it'll give them the option to set a recurring donation up. All these are very similar. When you create the button, it'll do exactly like the fixed price with button code and a link that will take you to the same page. And the final type is the recurring payments type. If you go down here, you can select a plan and you just tell us what plan you want to associate this with. So when someone checks out with this button, they're going to be assigned to the plan called The Plan, which is a boring name, but is the plan that is going to be assigned to this button. And we give you a description of what the plan does. So this is a $12 every 30 days until canceled plan. So they'll be charged $12 up front, and then 30 days later, and every 30 days, they'll be charged that $12 until it's canceled. If this was the sort of plan that had 12 payments, for example, and then it was done, the first payment that they run on checkout would count towards those 12, so they'd have the first one today and then 11 more. Everything else is the same, and we get the button code and the link alternative. But let's take a look at some of these settings now. First up is look and feel. So if you don't like the look and feel of the checkout page, you can modify that here. All you have to do is go to Add Profile, and then you can change colors. You can add a header URL or footer URL. These are going to be links to files such as HTML files, CSS files, or images. Most people use this for images, and basically this will display whatever you link to above or below the checkout form that the customer fills out. The header text this is just HTML, so you can put whatever you want. So let's do hello, and that's just going to display as text. Or I can put in some HTML, and now it's styled text. So you can put anything in there you'd like. It's just an HTML box, and whatever you put will display. When you save that, make sure you give it a name. We'll call it custom one. And when I save it, it now shows up as an option. And when I make it default, all of my buttons, whether I made them previously or afterwards, will start using that profile. Next up, we've got customer information. This is going to let you choose what information you want us to ask the customer to fill out on checkout. You can customize it to a great deal, including shipping information, any merchant-defined fields. I have one right here. Those will be shown or hidden or optional, whatever you want. And you can change it to be as strict or as loose as you want. Any of these can be set to required, optional, or hidden, and you can just choose whatever makes the most sense for your checkout flow. Payment methods lets you choose whether you want credit card and or checks to be accepted through the QuickClick checkout. You can choose one or the other, or both, or neither. Neither won't really work, but you can choose one or the other, and then that will work perfectly fine. If you don't have one of these as an option on your account, then you won't see them, of course. Security is where you can go to change whether you want a security key to validate the information. Basically, you want to always have this on. This makes sure that the customer cannot make any changes to amounts, for example, and it assures that whatever you intended the button to do, that's how much it's going to charge, and that's what items it's going to be associated with. So we recommend always keeping this turned on. You can enable or disable CAPTCHA. It's enabled by default, and that's where the customer must prove that they're not a robot, usually by clicking just a checkbox. Occasionally it'll ask them to pick out cars or something on the street. We recommend you keep that on to make sure that you don't have card spinners or anything trying to check out on your page, only real people. Next up, we have tax. So you can set specific tax rates for specific states and provinces. Now, this is only going to apply to shopping cart buttons, but you can make it so that people from, in this case, Florida pay an 8% tax over whatever amount the button was for, and people checking out in Hawaii get 6%. Everyone else will have no tax associated with them, so you'd have to enter them individually here for each amount. Let's say in Massachusetts, we want 3.5, and then you save it, so now Massachusetts people will also pay a little bit more. Then we have shipping. Shipping is similar. This effectively lets you set up thresholds. So thresholds are the minimum amount. So if a transaction is processed, and again, this is shopping cart only. If a transaction is processed for, let's say, $10, that's going to hit this first threshold because this is greater than 0, but less than 50. So the domestic rate for shipping is going to be $10 added onto the transaction. And if it's outside the US, it's going to be 15. You may also optionally let them select what shipping type they'd like, ground, 3-day, 2-day, or next day, and you can mark up these amounts by a certain percentage. So if, for example, a customer is checking out for that $10 item and they're in the US, they're going to be in this threshold, so $10 shipping will be added. And then if they choose next day air, we're going to add 40% onto that $10. So that'll be $14 in shipping on top of the $10 product, so they'll end up paying $24 total. Then there's convenience fee and surcharging. So if you have convenience fee and surcharging turned on for your gateway account as a whole, then you can set that to apply to your QuickClick transactions as well, as either nothing, fixed, or percentage. And then when the customer is checking out, you can decide whether the line item on the checkout page that shows them this additional amount will show as surcharge or convenience fee. It's not going to change how much is done, but it's going to determine how it actually looks to the customer. And finally, we have button history. So any button you've created on your gateway account will show up over here. You can see a bunch of buttons here, and it's going to give you the timestamp for when it was created, a description of what it was. So for example, this was a $5 fixed price for testing products. So this was the name of the product that we were checking out, and it is a fixed price type for this amount. And when I click into the code, I can see the button code and the link alternative. This is exactly what was shown when I created the button so that I can get it back if I lost it. Now, let's say I no longer sell this product anymore and I don't want people to be able to check out for it. You can do that by hitting the trash can icon, and this will let you delete and disable the button. So this will disable that link alternative. The HTML will continue to work because that's created in a different way and you can't really delete that. But anytime you sent the link out to somebody or had it on your website or something like that, you can make it so anyone clicking that link no longer can check out. When I delete, it'll be removed from the table and can no longer work.